Oi! Yes! You guys, it's Tuesday night. The DraftKings show on Pub Sports Radio is over. The Dana White's Contender Series is over. It's 10 p.m. Central Time. I've got a cold beverage with me, which I'm pouring into a glass right now, and I think you guys know what that means. It means it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. Let's get into it today, you guys. We've got 15 fights on the UFC 267 card coming up this Saturday. We start early, you guys. Got to wake up early for the fights on Saturday. They're in Abu Dhabi. I think we start like 9:30 Central Time. I think I got to get up at like 8 a.m. Central Time, a god-awful hour that I didn't even know existed, in order to be on my man DFS by the Numbers Best Bet show 1 hour before the fights start, so that we can give you our best bets for every fight, all 15 fights on the UFC 267 slate. So we got a lot of work to do on Just the Tip today, you guys. 15 fights to get through. I'm going to give you just the tip of all of the stats that I have for all 15 of these matchups. We're going to break them down from a statistical perspective. I'm going to talk about some of the tape that I've watched. And at the end of that, I'm going to give you a 4-leg greasy parlay that we can hopefully cash this week. And then we will, as always, conclude with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. You guys, let's get into it. Let's see what's going on in the chat here with y'all. We got my guy DFS by the Numbers. Shit, I didn't see this. I have my Apple Teeny in hand, and I'm ready to watch some Just the Tip. If you guys missed the DraftKings show on Pub Sports Radio earlier today, you may not get that reference, but I'm sure that's going to get clipped at some point and put on Twitter what I said about the Ribas Jandiroba fight. But anyway, you know, we cast our lot as content creators, and sometimes we're going to have to answer for it when we're wrong, but we also get the glory when we're right, and that's the best part of doing this. We got my guy Headley one in the room saying, I already parlayed two of Weezy's favorites for next week, UFC 268. Jean Volante and Alexa Kamer. No! Headley one. What happened? Are you okay? What happened, dude? No. John Volante. Alexa Kamer? Dear God, Josh, save us. No. Headley one, you usually are the ones giving the good bets in here. What are you doing, man? Did you suffer a head injury? Oh my God, a DFS by the Numbers saying that sounds terrifying. Headley one, good luck. And Headley one saying Ribas and Jandiroba are both plus 1,200 by sub on FanDuels. What? Yeah, those sub lines are way off, especially in Jandiroba's case, because Jandiroba has finished all three of her UFC wins inside the distance, and essentially they were all three by sub. But the win over Murata was a broken arm, and it was stopped between rounds, so it was considered a TKO instead of a sub from the arm bar that she got her in. But either way, she's a wizard on the ground. So I've already said to somebody else earlier that the plus 1,200 Jandiroba by sub gets the Uncle Weezy stamp of approval. And we got Gran Escarabajo in the room saying best show of the week. I appreciate that. Big up yourself, Gran. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. And we got Headley one saying, I'm just kidding about Volante Kamer parlay. Just wanted to see Weezy's reaction. Man, whew, you had me going there, brother. That would have been such a bad thing to do. It looks like DFS by the Numbers is relieved as well. And Headley one saying that money is coming in on Bobby Green, Marlon Vera, and Alex Pereira next week if you want to beat the line movement. Yeah, Alex Pereira in particular against Mihalidis is a really good matchup for him. I could see Pereira being a very big favorite. I'm not even sure who Green's fighting at this point. And Vera's fighting Edgar, I think, right? Is it Vera Edgar? That's going to be a great fight. Big fan of Marlon Vera, big fan of Frankie Edgar, big fan of this card, big fan of the next card. Covington Usman, what a main event. You guys, we're in for a couple of great weeks of UFC here. The UFC and the gambling gods hopefully will smile down upon us over these next couple of weeks and allow us to cash a ton of bets on some great fights. And we got JSJ saying, oi, Oi, JSJ, good to see you hanging out in here. We got Nigel Lee in the room. What's up, Nigel? Good to see you, brother. Just here for the bomb MMA content, but just the tip, baby. Just the tip of all the stats tonight. We're not going balls deep tonight into all the stats, but we already did do a balls deep breakdown earlier this week on the Ribas Jandiroba fight. If you haven't seen that yet, check it out. And we got Kirby Eichholt saying, at Headley 1, good grapplers often negate each other's finishes. And yeah, that does happen sometimes, especially sometimes when you see two great wrestlers and then they wind up boxing for 15 minutes. That's always weird. Petrozak, Nathan saying, Bobby Green's a solid bet. I didn't see Jim Miller getting a nasty KO the other week, though, so anything can happen at this point. Yeah, that was wild, seeing Miller really throw hands like that and knock out a guy as durable as the Ghost Pepper Gonzalez. That was a hell of a win for him. Jim Miller, the ageless Jim Miller, still doing it and setting the record for the most UFC fights. My God, what a stud, Jim Miller. Big up yourself. And we got Mick G, Motive Med, Callum McGregor saying, hey. And wow, the chat really popped off here and saying, lucrative DWCS. Love hearing that, Mick G. That's always fantastic. We got the Apple Teenies here for Headley 1. We got Dan Goldstein saying, Nigel, why did you let me bet Janzi on that Dana White card? Friends aren't meant to let friends do dumb things. And we got JSJ saying, that one dislike must be a Ribas fan. It could be, but it wouldn't be the first time one of my videos got disliked. We just get past it. We got to grow. We got to keep moving forward. JSJ. We got Nigel saying, Weezy, I have the same Hugh Hefner smoking jacket. Yeah, man, it's Tuesday night. Got to get dressed up. You've got to look good, man. This is the sensual prelude to the balls deep breakdown. And we got MMA Idan saying, bruh, Headley 1 is drunk. And we got Dad's File saying, Lambo play Headley 1. Jandiroba inside the distance plus 450. I'm going to be looking at that, MMA Idan. I am going to be looking at that. We got Tim saying, sup, Weezy. What's up, Tim? Thanks for joining us today. And we got McG Motive Med saying all over Jandiroba. Thanks, Weezy, for turning me on her. I'm a big fan of hers. Even the fights that she's lost could have went either way. And she's lost to a couple of really high-level fighters in Dern and Carla Esparza, who's probably going to be next for the title. So after the Wei Li fight, obviously. But, yeah, great fighter. Ribas, great, well-rounded fighter, too. It's going to be probably one of the better women's fights in the last couple of months, honestly. And we got Nigel Lee saying, Dan, sorry, my dude, I was slacking big time. And we got, let's see here, Dan saying, you were caught kicking in a big way, and I paid for it. LOL. My main bet was a parlay, so I came out profitable. All good. Hope you're well. It's good to see both Dan and Nigel in here. You guys are a couple of the best supporters of the online MMA community. You're much loved and much appreciated up in here on my channel anytime. Dan saying Ribas versus Janny was definitely the meaty part of the curve breakdown-wise. Missed the live shows, but I'm back. Good to see you, Nigel. Absolutely. We got two saying, what's up, Weezy? And we got Skywalker DFS saying, getting my ass shaved in NBA. Man, I stopped betting and watching the NBA a long time ago. I'm all about the NBA now, or I'm all about MMA, and I get a little bit of football in. And we got CNC Frosty. Don't be lazy. Smash that like button for my boy Uncle Weezy giving us these stats. I appreciate that, CNC Frosty. And we got Clay Loizo saying, I like Ribas, but I went heavy on Jandiroba even before Stat Diggers. Good. At least I wasn't the one that talked you into it if it winds up going tits up. And it absolutely could. Ribas is a great fighter, but I just think Jandiroba has a ton of advantages, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And we got Skywalker saying, no cream. Dan Goldstein, much love. You guys, we got to get into these stats, man. We got a lot of work to do tonight. 15 fights. I'm going to check and see if my guy Smooth Jimmy Apollo has got his lock of the week ready for you guys, if he's got that big smile ready for you guys, and if we're ready to start with the stats here. There he is, man. There's Smooth Jimmy Apollo. He's right 52% of the time. He likes Virna Jandiroba this weekend, as do I, but we got 15 fights to go through, you guys. So let's start right here. I've got the odds up for all these fights. I've got the Tapology page for the entire card up. And then I've also got, obviously, the same stats that you guys always see on all my shows here on YouTube. The link to these stats is in the description. I've zoomed in on them a little bit more today. Let me know if you guys can read them right there, because I usually go 150% when I zoom in on when I do my balls deep breakdowns. But when I do just the tip, it's at only 100%. It's at the regular size. And I know, Michael Burkett brought up to me last week on just the tip that he couldn't see the stats, and I thought it was just because he was on his phone. But then when I watched it back later on my television, I couldn't see him either. So I'm hoping that you guys can read the stats on your phones, on your laptops, whatever it is you're watching the show on today. Let me get a sip of my beverage here, and then we're going to get into the stats for 15 fights on UFC 267, guys. And we got Bailey out there saying, Weezy, first time catching the live stream. Let me bring your comment up, Bailey. Thank you for joining us live. It's good to see you in here, Bailey. Appreciate it. But let's get into these stats, you guys. And we're going to start with the curtain jerker. We're going to start with Tagir Ulanbekov against Alan Nascimento. So both of these guys are 30 years old. Nascimento is going to be 2 inches taller. He's got a half-inch reach disadvantage. Ulanbekov is a southpaw. Nascimento orthodox. Nascimento, a Brazilian fighter. Ulanbekov, Russian. So we've got Nascimento with the experience advantage here with 23 fights. He's got an 18-5 record, while Ulanbekov is 13-1. And, Ulanbekov could absolutely be undefeated. He lost a split decision or a majority decision to Ismagulov in a 5-round fight, I believe over in Fight Nights Global or an M1. And it looked like Ulanbekov won that fight. So Ulanbekov pretty damn close to being undefeated. We got Nascimento with a little more cage time as a pro, a little more average fight time for Ulanbekov. 8.87 minutes for Nascimento, 10.79 for Ulanbekov. Length of career, about a year longer for Nascimento. Both of these guys have a fight at the UFC level, but for Nascimento, it was a contender series level fight against Raulian Paiva, and Ulanbekov made his debut against Bruno Bulldog Silva. So both of these guys have one UFC fight. They both went to decision. If we look at the finish stats, we see Ulanbekov, 61% finish rate overall. Nascimento, 83% finish rate, 72% by submission. Neither one of these guys has ever been submitted in 6 or knocked out. So no finishes and 6 combined losses. This fight is most likely to go over. Both of these guys are extremely well-rounded. Nascimento shoots for a lot of takedowns, but he is a little bit sloppy on the ground. I saw him kind of give up position quite a few times against Raulian Paiva. He gets into a lot of scrambles. He's a good scrambler. Ulanbekov, though, is really going to be the better wrestler here. He's going to be the more likely one to get it to the ground should he shoot for takedowns. We don't have much in the way of stats, you guys, because there's a one-fight sample size for both of these guys. But we see Nascimento with a much better striking accuracy of 68% compared to 37% for Tagir. Tagir much better defensively at 58% to 44%. Both these guys landing, actually Nascimento landing more than he absorbs. Ulanbekov actually got out struck by Bruno Silva. He lands 3.07 a minute and absorbs 3.13. We see Ulanbekov 5 for 11 on his takedowns in that fight. Nascimento was 1 for 10. And Nascimento, we don't have any control time numbers, but it was Paiva that did the majority of the time controlling there, while Ulanbekov out-controlled Silva 25% to 15%. So we've got Ulanbekov, a good, efficient wrestler, but he also got taken down 4 times. So 19 total takedown attempts in the Ulanbekov-Silva fight. So I think we can expect a lot of the same here. Nascimento tried 10 takedowns against Paiva and was taken down in the only attempt that Paiva shot on him. I do see this being a high amplitude grappling match. I think it'll be a great fight to target for DraftKings. In terms of strength of schedule, Ulanbekov fought Silva, Nascimento fought Paiva. So, both of these guys have fought guys with winning records. If we just kind of break it down, we're going to give a tiny bit of a tail of the tape advantage for Nascimento here, an experience advantage for Nascimento. I think that both of these guys are good strikers. Ulanbekov should be the better more efficient wrestler. He should be the guy winning minutes on the ground. And I think that that's a big advantage in this fight because I do see most of this fight taking place in the grappling realm. I'm picking Tagir Ulanbekov. I'm picking him to win by decision. And I think that this fight goes to decision, you guys. I do not see a finish happening in this one. So we've got the next fight. Magomed Mustafaev against Damir Ismagulov. And I just wanted to bring up Mustafaev having one of the most terrifying haircuts that I have ever seen on a human being. It looks like Damien from The Omen grew up, and he is now an MMA fighter out of Chechnya, I believe, coming out of Grozny, one of the most beautiful places on earth. So Magomed Mustafaev, you guys, 3 wins, 2 losses in the UFC. All 3 of his wins inside the distance. And I don't believe he ever got... Oh, yeah, he did get subbed by Kevin Lee. That was a great fight. And then we got Damir Ismagulov, his opponent. So Ismagulov, 3 years younger, 1 inch taller, and it's going to be Mustafaev with a 1 inch reach advantage here. Ismagulov fighting out of Kazakhstan, the very generically named fighter gym. And then we've got ATT and FC Berkut. And I believe Magomed Mustafaev fighting out of Jackson Wink as well sometimes. So I'm not exactly sure where he's doing his camps now, but fighting out of Russia. So Ismagulov with a slight experience advantage here as he has 4 more fights than Mustafaev. He's got about 150 more minutes of cage time, while Mustafaev has been a pro for 10 years and 5 months. But Mustafaev has been very inactive as a professional. 10 and a half years as a pro, only 17 fights, while we see Ismagulov averaging about 3 fights a year, 7-year career, 21 fights. While for Mustafaev, it's about 1.5 fights a year. So definitely a lot more active has been Ismagulov. And then if we look at the UFC experience, Mustafaev 1 more fight. Ismagulov undefeated in the UFC. All of Ismagulov's fights have went to decision thus far, while Mustafaev's fights have finished inside the distance 4 of 5 times in the UFC. And he's got a 100% finish rate as a pro. So this is a very interesting fight because Ismagulov is excellent standing up, and he can go to his wrestling as well when he wants to win minutes there. So Ismagulov is very well-rounded. He's excellent defensively. We'll see that when we look at the striking defense numbers. But he's not really a finisher, you know. He hasn't finished anybody yet in the UFC. He can outpoint you. He can outbox you. He can out-wrestle you, and he can win minutes with top control in his grappling. So Mustafaev, though, is explosive, you guys. Spinning kicks. He's just a mean-looking dude, and he throws heat. He really brings it. So we did see Damir Ismagulov get completely surprised right off the bat by Rafael Alves in his last fight. He got knocked down, and then Alves went to work on the ground and got reversed quickly, and then Ismagulov kind of put it on him for the second half of the first round, and then just went on cruise control pretty much for the rest of the fight. Although he did get cut. So Ismagulov didn't look as good as I would have liked him to look in that last fight, but he is very well-rounded. He's excellent defensively. There's not many holes in his game. But Mustafaev is the kind of guy that can absolutely take a point fighter and bring him out of his game because he's so explosive, because he's so unorthodox, and because he's so mean. He can kind of just put the type of pace and fight upon somebody that makes them very uncomfortable. And we will, you know, I want to kind of take you a little bit closer look into the stats here after we finish up with what we have here on this page, you guys. So Magomed Mustafaev lands 2.59 significant strikes a minute and absorbs 2.68, while we've got Ismagulov landing 3.75 and absorbing only 1.9. So while Mustafaev is a lot more accurate at 59% than Ismagulov at 43%, and he's a lot more powerful as Mustafaev is landing a knockdown on 2.13% of the significant strikes that he's landed, while for Ismagulov it's 0.44. So Mustafaev, more accurate, more powerful, but Ismagulov so much better defensively. Look at this 66% striking defense in comparison to 41 for Magomed Mustafaev. Both of these guys have been knocked down. So, there's an avenue for both of these guys to land a big shot and change the fight there. So, 0.41 knockdowns absorbed per fight for Mustafaev, and it's 0.25 for Ismagulov. But, for me, it's just Mustafaev, while he will probably lose minutes in the striking exchanges, I also think he'll be the one landing the bigger, more fight-changing shots. And I'm worried about I am not betting the Ismagulov money line here, you guys. We see that both of these guys are pretty good with their wrestling. Ismagulov, 19 takedown attempts in 4 fights. He's gotten 7 of them for about 37% accuracy, averaging 1.75 takedowns per 15 minutes and 29% control, or almost 30% control time for, and only 2.56% control time against. While we got Mustafaev here with 26% control time for, 37% control time against. Mustafaev showing 23% takedown defense. I think that had a lot to do with the Kevin Lee fight. Kevin Lee really dominated him on the ground and really out-wrestled him. But, we've seen Mustafaev fight with a couple of different game plans here. So it looks like both of these guys are capable to go to their wrestling. Although we do see Mustafaev being out-controlled by his opponents and showing poor takedown defense and showing the ability to being taken down 4.14 times for 15 minutes. And Ismagulov is shooting almost 5 takedown attempts per fight. And he's getting them at a decent clip. 37% isn't horrible. But if you're asking me which one of these guys is going to win minutes on the ground, it's Damir Ismagulov, because he's the guy who's out controlling his opponents. He's the guy who's winning minutes with top control. He's showing 100% takedown defense. So he's doing a very good job of winning minutes both on the feet and on the ground. And that's something that you would expect out of somebody that's 4-0 in the UFC and is never finished inside the distance. You would expect them to be an excellent minute winner, and that's exactly what Damir Ismagulov is. While Mustafaev is a moment winner, and when he wins moments, he wins fights. So this is a very, very interesting fight. If we look at the ratios of the strength of schedule here, we see Mustafaev having the worst ratio at 1.77, which is actually a good ratio, but it's Ismagulov with 4.5 ratio. So, but fighting the less experienced competition at 2.75 fights, while for Mustafaev it's 7.2. If we look at the wins, it's Ismagulov has a really good ratio at 4.5. He's beating guys with an average record of 2.25 and 0.5 losses, while the average guy that Mustafaev beats 3.33 and 2 for a 1.67 ratio. Ismagulov has never lost. The only guys to beat Mustafaev are Kevin Lee and Brad Riddell. If you take out those 2 wins, they would have been 15-7, now 13-7 with my metric. That's 10 total fights and a 1.86 ratio. But if we go into the advanced stats here, I just want to show you what we got for. Now, these are the fights that Mustafaev has had. All 3 wins inside the distance against Piotr Hallman, Joe Proctor, and Rafael Fasayev. And then the losses to a 4-0 Brad Riddell and 11-7 Kevin Lee. But when he's losing fights, you see him get out-controlled by Kevin Lee on the ground. So he can be out-controlled. That was the path to victory for Lee, was to take him down and control him on the ground. While Riddell, it was actually Mustafaev who out-controlled Riddell at 423 to 122. But he got 8 of 11 takedowns. But those 8 takedowns only resulted in 423 seconds of control time, not enough to win the fight. And it was Mustafaev who had been knocked down once, had 38 significant strikes landed against him and 60 total strikes. But, we can see with Mustafaev here, that he can be out-controlled like he was against Hallman and still get a win. And, when he is winning, he doesn't necessarily need to out-control his opponents like Ismagulov might have to. So I think both of these guys have a couple of different avenues. Ismagulov is going to be the much better minute winner here. But if you're thinking about betting Ismagulov, you might want to hedge with a Mustafaev inside the distance, because when this guy hits, it hurts. And whenever he gets somebody hurt, the killer instinct absolutely, pops in and he finishes fights. You guys, this is a really good fight. I'm looking forward to Ismagulov, Mustafaev. I think a lot of people have forgotten about Magomed Mustafaev, and I'm really looking forward to watching him fight on Saturday. So let's move on to the next one here. And this one is one I'm not looking to nearly as much, but let me just wet my whistle here. Yeah, and it looks like Clay just said exactly what I was thinking there. Ismagulov by decision or Mustafaev by TKO. Might be able to bet both and make it profitably work. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Like I say, I think Mustafaev can win this one inside the distance, but I think that's kind of his only path because Ismagulov's such a good minute winner. Let's get through this one here, you guys. A little bit of a tail of the tape advantage for Yaozong here over Andrei Petroski, who is very young, 26 years old, 4 years younger than Andre. He's 3 inches taller, going to have a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Fighting out of Tiger Muay Thai, while Petroski, as far as I know, out of Balance Studios. Excuse me. Excuse me, you guys. I think I'm getting a little bit sick. Oh, man. So anyway, Petroski, 2 more fights than Who here. 7 fights for Petroski, 5 for Who. We got a 6-1 record for Petroski, 3-2 for Who. Both of these guys with a career less than 5 years. We've got Who with 2 fights in the UFC, Petroski with 1. So I would say Who's got a little bit of a size advantage here. Petroski maybe a slight experience advantage here, but both of these guys are extremely inexperienced. Both of these guys have finished 100% of their wins, and in their 3 combined losses, 2 of them have finished inside the distance. This is probably a pretty good candidate to finish inside the distance. The numbers that we have here, you guys, not much. 2 fights for Who, 1 fight for Andre. We see that Who is absorbing more than he lands. Petroski landing more than he absorbs. Good accuracy at 57% for Petroski, but horse shit striking defense at 40%, and even horse shittier striking defense for Yaozong at 38.5%. Who has been knocked down, but this dude has got a crazy chin. He is extremely difficult to knock out, and I don't see Petroski knocking him out. I think if Petroski finishes him, it'll either be by sub or ground and pound. He's not knocking him out on the feet. We see that Who has about the worst grappling numbers that you can have statistically. 0% takedown percentage and 0% takedown defense. Not good, you guys. 24% control time for, 23% control time against. So Who's fights have taken place in control time positions for quite a while. Almost 50% of his career. While for Petroski, that's clearly the type of fight that he's most comfortable in, controlling his opponents 57.83% of the time and only yielding 0.38% control time. However, Petroski was kind of gifted a pretty easy first opponent in the UFC, getting Michael Gilmore, who had lost all of his fights inside the distance by submission. It was a tailor-made opponent for Petroski, and still Petroski had, it was a greasy fight, but Petroski did come out on top. And then if we look at the strength of schedule, you guys, there's just not much there. I'm not betting this fight. If I were to bet it, it would probably be a fight doesn't go to decision bet. Let's see where the line is on that. Maybe we can find some value there, you guys. Yaozong, Petroski, all the props still really not out for this, but we do have a fight doesn't go to decision, juiced up around minus 180. I'd like to get it a little bit better than that. Yeah, staying away from this one, you guys. As far as the pick goes, I see some people on Who, but, Petroski is a minus 220 favorite, is the best bet that you can get right now on him. That is on Bet Online. Minus 220. Everywhere else is around minus 230 to minus 240. Petroski should be able to win this fight, with you. But, Who, those stats that we have of him were him fighting at heavyweight and him fighting at light heavyweight. Now he's moving down to middleweight. We haven't seen this dude in so long. There could have been a ton of improvements made for Who. It's really a stay away fight for me, you guys. I don't know how you guys are feeling in the chat here. I'll pick Petroski. What I've seen of the ground game of Petroski is better than what I've seen from Who in the past, but I have to assume who's made improvements, but I'll pick Petroski here. We'll say inside the distance, second round submission. But I am not betting that fight, you guys. Next one is a lot more compelling of a fight here, you guys. We got Makwan, Mr. Finland, Amirkhani against Lerone, Miracle Murphy. And I would be, I showed you Magomed Mustafaev's Tapology picture, which will probably be with you tonight in your nightmares. So why not, if I did that to you guys, why can't I come out the other end here and do something a lot classier and give you guys one of the best, if not the best, Tapology pictures, that of one Mr. Finland, Makwan Amirkhani. Look at him just chilling there. It makes you want to bet on him, doesn't it? It makes you want to bet on him. That picture made me want to bet on him against Camuela Kirk, and it absolutely cost your Uncle Weezy. Don't let the pick fool you. This guy is not as good of a fighter as he is as good at taking pictures with beautiful, beautiful Finland women. Finnish, I guess that would be. But either way, now that we got the picture out of the way, we can get back to the stats here because I had to show that to you. One of my favorites. We're going to see tail of the tape almost exactly the same here. Lerone Murphy, 2 years younger. Makwan Amirkhani, 1 inch taller. Lerone Murphy, 1 inch of reach. It's going to be Amirkhani fighting out of the southpaw stance while Lerone Murphy is an orthodox fighter. We got Amirkhani with twice as much experience as a pro, 22 fights to Lerone Murphy's 11, about twice as much time in the cage for Amirkhani, and almost twice as much time as a pro here. 10 of Amirkhani's 22 fights have been at the UFC level, while 3 of Murphy's 11 fights have been at the UFC level. Definitely a lot more experience in the UFC for Amirkhani, and an average fight time here right around 11 minutes for both of them. If we look at the finish stats, Amirkhani, a great submission grappler. He is finishing 69% of his wins by submission, 6% by knockout, while Lerone Murphy is just flat knocking fools out at 60%. Rate, 6 of his 10 wins coming inside the distance, 4 by decision. And then if we look here, Makwan Amirkhani, 6 losses, 2 of them inside the distance, 1 of them by knockout, 1 of them by submission, and Lerone Murphy has never been defeated. We got some decent sample sizes here, so let's look at these striking stats. Makwan Amirkhani, very economical, if we're being nice, landing strikes, at landing only 1.4 significant strikes a minute and absorbing 2.52, while Murphy lands 2.86 a minute and absorbs 2.07. Both of these guys striking accuracy right around 43%. Lerone Murphy, surprisingly, has never knocked anybody down, even though he's a boxer with a lot of power. And Amirkhani does have 1 knockdown to his credit. He's averaging 0.14 knockdowns per 15 minutes. If we look at the defensive side of things, Amirkhani absorbing way more than he lands, while Murphy lands more than he absorbs. So Murphy with that 63.5% striking defense going to be the better defensively fighter here, while it's only 52% striking defense for Amirkhani. Both of these guys have been knocked down. 1.91% of the significant strikes Amirkhani absorbs knock him down, and that's 5 knockdowns, you guys. He's been knocked down 5 times in the 10 fights as Makwan Amirkhani. So there's definitely a path here for Lerone Murphy to land a big shot and put down Amirkhani on his arse. And then, Murphy, he's been knocked down too. He's been knocked down once in 71 significant strikes absorbed. So both of these guys have been knocked down. If we look at the grappling, Makwan Amirkhani, lifelong wrestler, loves to get the fight to the ground, great submission grappler, and he's got elite level front chokes, anaconda chokes, Darce chokes, guillotine chokes. You don't want to give this guy your neck, man, because he will snatch it up quick, and that's how he loves to finish fights, as we saw earlier in the finish stats. All right, so Amirkhani is 25 of 62 on his takedown attempts. So he's averaging 6.2 takedown attempts per fight. He's getting them at 40%, averaging 3.61 takedowns per 15 minutes, and getting 34% control time while yielding about 21% control time. We see Lerone Murphy has gotten 2 of his 6 takedown attempts. He's not an active grappler, but he will shoot for takedowns, and sometimes at times that you really wouldn't expect him to shoot for takedowns. Murphy's got great ground and pound, you guys, and he's finished a couple of fights with that ground and pound. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Lerone Murphy took down Amirkhani to try to, really pound him. We'll see. But Lerone Murphy was shooting for takedowns against Ricardo Ramos, against Tukhugov. It was surprising to me. But it looks like Amirkhani is going to be the guy that's going to get the control time advantage here. 34% of his fights spent in control time positions. While Murphy, it's kind of weird. I know it shows him with 37% control time here, but that's really not his game. He does get taken down a lot. Look at that 41.67% takedown defense. I know he's been working on his wrestling, but that is not good. But Amirkhani, he's happy to be on the ground, so he doesn't have a great takedown defense either. If we look at the strength of schedule stats for these guys, we got a 2.5 ratio for Lerone Murphy, while it's 1.41, and the total fights are similar. So definitely Lerone Murphy has fought the better brand of competition in 3 fights than Amirkhani's fought in 10. And if we look at Amirkhani's wins, this is the problem, you guys. Amirkhani's only beating guys with losing records, an average record of 1.83 wins and 2.17 losses. 4 total fights, a ratio below 1 at 0.85, while we look at a 2.75 ratio for Lerone Murphy, 7.5 total fights, 5.5 wins, 2 losses, while Amirkhani losing to very good competition with a 1.93 win-loss ratio, 10.25 total fights, 6.75 wins, 3.5 losses. We look at the last 5 here. Wins by unanimous decision over Douglas Silva de Andrade, a win by knockout over Ricardo Ramos, and then a split decision draw to Zubaira Tukhugov that I thought Tukhugov clearly won that fight. And then we see the last 5 here for Amirkhani. Lost by unanimous decision to Kirk, lost by unanimous decision to Edson Barbosa, a win by sub over Danny Henry, lost to Shane Burgos, win over Chris Fishgold. So Lerone Murphy is a big favorite here, you guys. This is a classic striker versus grappler matchup. It's going to be Amirkhani looking to wrestle, looking to win minutes on the ground, looking to fish for submissions, while Lerone Murphy's, if he's smart, is going to want to keep this fight on the feet, use that superior length, that far superior striking to just pick apart Amirkhani from a distance, and then take advantage of the fact that Amirkhani has been chinny in the past, being knocked down in almost 2% of the significant strikes that he absorbs to land a big shot. I'm picking Lerone Murphy to win this fight. I think he probably gets it done by decision. I think Amirkhani is going to probably have some success with the grappling early, but then as the fight goes on, we've seen his gas tank fade. We've seen that wrestling become less and less effective, and we've seen him get swept on the ground and absorb some big shots. So I'm going to be picking Lerone Murphy to win this one by decision, you guys. This next one, Shamil Gamzatov against Michal Oleksiejczuk. We got Michal is 5 years younger. It's going to be Gamzatov, who's 2 inches taller and having a 2-inch reach advantage here. Michal, the southpaw. Gamzatov, orthodox. Poland versus Russia here, you guys. We got Michal with an experience advantage. He's got 20 fights to Gamzatov's 14. About 20 more minutes in the cage. Both these guys with average fight time right around 8-minute mark. And Gamzatov's been fighting for a couple more years, so he's been the less active fighter, fighting about 1.5 times per year, while Oleksiejczuk is fighting about 2.5 times per year. And Oleksiejczuk fighting a higher percentage of his career at the UFC level, 30% of his pro fights there, while for Gamzatov, it's less than 10%. If we look at the finish numbers, we see Gamzatov is kind of an equal opportunity finisher here, 36% by submission, 36% by knockout, while Oleksiejczuk really much more of a knockout artist. And when Oleksiejczuk loses, it's mostly by submission. But one thing to note here is that in these guys' 4 combined losses, all of them by Oleksiejczuk, Oleksiejczuk has been finished inside the distance in all of his losses. So I like to bet fights don't go to decision when we see 100% finish rate inside the distance in the combined losses for the 2 fighters. This one came out at plus money, so I took a shot at it for like 0.75 units. It's a small bet, but I don't like to pass up those opportunities. When I get 100% loss rate in the combined losses and there's usually more than 3 or 4 fights where there are losses. I like betting those spots, especially at plus money. So we can't talk much about Gamzatov here, but in his one fight against Klidson Abreu, he landed 4.27 and absorbed 2.13 significant strikes a minute. Nothing spectacular happening there. Oleksiejczuk lands 4.45 a minute and absorbs 3.24. Oleksiejczuk definitely pretty accurate up here at about 53%, and he's knocking people down on 2% of the significant strikes that he's landing. So in 6 fights, Oleksiejczuk has 4 knockdowns. So definitely some really good power on the feet. Oleksiejczuk is a very unorthodox striker. He comes at you from very strange angles, while Gamzatov appears to be powerful, but he's just kind of slow. I think it's something with the name Shamil. It's just they're slow, they're plodding, but they kind of drag you into that slow and plodding fight, which is the fight that they thrive in that atmosphere. And I think Shamil kind of thrives there. We see that even though he's been fighting regional scene competition, he's not much of a finisher. Most of these submissions that he has are against guys that don't even have a win in their career. So I don't know how high level his grappling is, but I think it's an interesting shot for a half unit or something to bet the fight doesn't go to decision here, because you do have Oleksiejczuk having all of his fights finished inside the distance when he loses, and he's a good finisher in his own right. And Gamzatov's got a lot of power, and light heavyweight fights finish at a pretty good percentage. So Oleksiejczuk only 5 takedown attempts in 6 fights. Gamzatov only attempted 1, but that was against Klidson Abreu, who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So, I think maybe he just wasn't even trying to wrestle in this fight. I think if Gamzatov is smart, he's going to wrestle in this fight, because Oleksiejczuk has looked like a fish out of water on the ground. And if Gamzatov wants to take the path of least resistance here, he'll be taking down Oleksiejczuk. He'll be exploiting this 40% takedown defense that Oleksiejczuk has shown. He's only been controlled 9% of his UFC career, but he's been subbed 3 times. Think about that. So let's take a little bit, one step deeper into the stats here, you guys. So Oleksiejczuk has been in the cage for 43 and a half minutes in the UFC, and he's only been controlled for 9% of that time. So that's about 4.3 minutes. We'll call it 4 minutes. So in 4 minutes of being controlled on the ground, this guy has been submitted 3 times. Think about that. That's terrible, you guys. That is terrible grappling defense. That is terrible submission defense. That is just terrible. I'll just leave it at that. So I think both of these guys have a chance to finish this fight, either Gamzatov or Oleksiejczuk. I like the fight doesn't go to decision here. Not much to talk about in terms of the strength of schedule, because Gamzatov only has 1 fight. But we see Oleksiejczuk fighting guys with a less than 1 ratio. His wins not that impressive, beating guys with losing records, although they do have a decent amount of fights. And he's losing to guys with slightly winning records, but more experienced guys. The pick here is Gamzatov, I guess, but I would not bet it. I do like the fight doesn't go to decision here, though. So I'm not betting this fight. It's the fight that I've done the least amount of research on, so I'm staying away from this one for now. And we're getting into this next one, which is Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos versus Benoit Saint-Denis. So Saint-Denis going to have 9 years of an age advantage here, being only 25 years old compared to 34 for Zaleski dos Santos. Both of these guys 5'11". We got Zaleski dos Santos with a 73-inch reach. I'm going to check UFC stats to see if they've updated Benoit Saint-Denis' reach yet. Let's see here. Nope. But Benoit is a southpaw. We knew that already. And we got an orthodox fighter for Zaleski dos Santos. Zaleski dos Santos has a huge experience advantage here. He's got over 3 times as many fights as Benoit Saint-Denis, more than 20 more fights, 200 more minutes in the cage, and about 9 more years as a pro, and 11 more UFC fights. So Benoit Saint-Denis, definitely the prospect here. Zaleski dos Santos, the old lion. Benoit has finished all of his wins inside the distance. He is a great submission grappler. 7 wins by submission, 1 win by knockout, while Zaleski dos Santos, 64% of his 22 wins are inside the distance by knockout, 14% by submission, 78% finish rate overall. And Dos Santos has finished 4 of his 8 UFC wins inside the distance, 3 by knockout, 1 by submission. And then we've got Zaleski dos Santos with a 43% finish rate on the losing side. He's been finishing 1 of his 3 UFC losses by knockout, and he's been finishing 3 of his 7 pro losses. Benoit Saint-Denis has never lost. He is 8-0 as a pro. Zaleski's striking numbers, landing 4.05 a minute, absorbing 3.07. He's got a 39% striking accuracy. That's not good. 0.38% knockdowns for total significant strikes landed, showing a little bit of power, but he is being knocked down on 1.25% of the significant strikes that he's absorbing. But he does have a very good striking defense here at 59% and absorbing 0.57 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Dos Santos in 11 fights has attempted 29 takedowns, but he has not been efficient getting them. Only 5 out of 29 has he gotten. 17% is the takedown percentage here. So he gets less than gets less than 1 takedown per 15 minutes, attempts less than 1 submission attempt per 15 minutes, and he gets 11% control time. While his takedown defense has not been good. Only 53% takedown defense. He's getting taken down 1.95 times per 15 minutes and being out-controlled 11% to 14%. If we look at the strength of schedule numbers, the average record of a Dos Santos opponent, 5 wins and 2.82 losses for a respectable ratio here of 1.77. The guys that he's beating and the guys that he's losing to have almost identical records. They're winning fighters. The last 5 for this guy: Muslim Salikov, Alexei Konchenko, Li Jingliang, Curtis Millender, and Luigi the Italian Stallion Vendramini. Just watched that fight before I started the show today. Vendramini, a little bit small for that one. But yeah, this guy is very dangerous. You know, he's finishing Vendramini, finishing Curtis Millender. He's losing to studs like Salikov and Li Jingliang. This is a huge step up for Benoit Saint-Denis. And Benoit Saint-Denis is an excellent grappler, but we've only seen Zaleski dos Santos subbed twice in his entire career. And I don't even know when those came. So take one more good look here at Makwan Amirkhani's Tapology picture before we go and we look at the guys that Dos Santos was subbed by. I would like to know who those people were, because that is going to be Benoit Saint-Denis' path to victory if he were to win this fight. So he got knocked out almost at the end of the Lee fight, lost by split decision to Nicholas Dalby. And then he got rear naked choked back in 2013 by Guillermo Bamba, and probably one more submission around there somewhere, but he hasn't been submitted since 2013. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. Zaleski is also very good on the ground. He's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's fought the better competition. He's more experienced, and he's going to have the way better striking here. So unless Benoit Saint-Denis pulls out a stunt on the ground, I really do like Zaleski to win this fight and win it inside the distance. This guy Saint-Denis, the average fight time is very short, and if we look at his very short career, we see not a lot of cage time. 3:29 of round 1. He won 3 minutes into round 3 in his second fight against a 4-0 Artur Skepanak. And then let's see, 2:47 around 1. Doctor stoppage at the end of round 2. Don't know what happened there. I didn't see that fight. Knee bar, I don't know when that happened. That fight is unavailable on Brave right now. 149 round 2. 351 round 2 and 309 round 1. So yeah, he gets in and out of there quickly, you guys. I do have an under 2.5 bet here at minus 140, I believe, for 1.4 units to try to win 1. I could see either one of these guys getting a finish. Zaleski dos Santos does not have the best takedown defense, as we see right here at 53%. So Benoit Saint-Denis perhaps could have some success on the ground and find a submission like he's want to do. But I think what's more likely to happen is that maybe he gets a little bit sloppy down there and winds up getting submitted himself by Zaleski dos Santos, or he's unable to take him down and hold him down, and he winds up getting knocked out. But my pick is Zaleski dos Santos inside the distance here. And let's see here. How many fights do we have left, you guys? We got a lot of work to do here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more fights to go, and we're almost an hour in. I got to try to get you guys out of here in like an hour and 40 minutes or less. So let's keep hitting it. Albert Duraev versus Roman Kopylov. Kopylov, 1 inch taller. Everything else pretty much the same. Kopylov is a southpaw striker. Duraev, orthodox grappler. Duraev, 8 more professional fights, about 10 more minutes of cage time, and about 5 more years as a pro. Both of these guys have only 1 UFC level fight. We got Duraev in his career with an 85% finish rate, and we've got Kopylov with an 88% finish rate. And both of these guys have been finished in 100% of their losses. All 3 of Duraev's losses inside the distance by knockout. 1 Kopylov loss inside the distance by submission. And Duraev, 64% of his wins by submission, and Kopylov, 88% of his wins by knockout. When I see those stats lining up like that, it screams violence bet. It screams fight doesn't go to decision bet. And it tells me that whichever guy I'm leaning, I should be betting them to win inside the distance, which I will be doing. We don't have much in the way of stats here, you guys, so I'm just going to tell you what I've seen on tape. Duraev's striking is actually pretty good. He throws great leg kicks. So he could have some success there, and I have seen Kopylov have trouble with leg kicks, in particular in the Karl Roberson fight. So Duraev could have some success on the feet here, but Kopylov, the only time I saw him taken down in the UFC was by Roberson. It was late in the fight, and he was submitted almost immediately afterwards. The rest of the tape I watched on Kopylov, I didn't really see anybody but Ali Skarov try to take him down, and even Ali Skarov only tried to take him down 2 or 3 times in a fight that wound up going 4 rounds, and it just didn't look like he had much. What I'm seeing here is that Duraev is probably going to do to Kopylov what he did to Bittencourt. Go in there, shoot a takedown, get it to the ground, work that BJJ game, and get a submission. I think this one's going to be quick, you guys. I think whoever wins this wins it inside the distance. I love a fight doesn't go to decision bet here, but I don't think they've dropped that line on any of the books that I have available. So let's kind of just take a quick look here. Right now, Albert Duraev is sitting around minus 278. It's the best you can get him at, but in a lot of spots, he's minus 340, minus 335. The best you can get on Kopylov, plus 265. And right now on Bet Online, they only have the over-under they have the over-under set at 1.5. And it looks like Betway and 5 Dimes have fight doesn't go at minus 200 and minus 185. That would be a smash spot for me, probably 4 units. As soon as I see that open up, I am definitely going to be smashing a fight doesn't go to decision bet here as soon as it's available. My pick is Albert Duraev by first round submission here. But my most confident pick with this fight is violence, you guys. Smash that fight doesn't go to decision as soon as it opens, and then tell the books when they're paying you out your tickets that your Uncle Weezy sent you. All right, let's move on to the next one here, you guys. Duraev by violence. Okay, Ricardo Ramos by Zubaira Tukhugov. Now, this is one of those fights that I don't have any kind of a read on, but let's go through the numbers and kind of just see what we can find. Ramos, 4 years younger, 4-inch reach advantage, 1-inch height advantage. So we've definitely got a tail of the tape advantage here for Ricardo Ramos. The experience advantage is going to go to Zubaira here, as he's got 25 fights to Ramos's 18 and twice as much time in the cage as a pro for Tukhugov. We got about 2 more years as a pro. If we look at the UFC experience, it's very similar. Ramos with 1 more fight. Both these guys with 82 minutes in the UFC cage. Both these guys with an average fight time between 10 and 12 minutes. So, big tail of the tape advantage for Ramos. Slight experience advantage for Tukhugov. We got a 67% finish rate overall as a pro for Ramos. 42% for Tukhugov. And Ramos has been finished in all 3 of his losses, while Tukhugov has been finished in 2 of his 5 losses. So Tukhugov's fight's more likely to go to decision than Ramos is for sure. As you know, right now it looks like Ramos 13 of his 18 fights have finished inside the distance, but for Tukhugov, it's less than half. So if we look at the striking stats here, we are going to see a little bit of an advantage here for Tukhugov as Ramos is absorbing a half strike per minute more than he lands. He lands 3.1, absorbs 3.6. He's got a 41% striking accuracy, 58% striking defense, and he's been knocked down only once in 298 significant strikes absorbed. Tukhugov, and he's got a little bit of power, Ramos, 0.78% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. So he's got two knockdowns in 256 significant strikes landed. While for Tukhugov, it's 3 knockdowns in 210 significant strikes landed, 38% striking accuracy, 1.43% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, a 63% striking defense. Both of these guys are willing wrestlers. 29 takedown attempts for Ramos, 30 for Tukhugov. Both these guys takedown percentage above 45, 46.67 for Tukhugov, 58% for Ramos. So both of these guys are getting a lot of takedowns, 3.08 per 15 minutes for Ramos, 2.54 for Tukhugov. But then neither of these guys really much on the control time side, 18% for Zubaira, 14% for Ramos. Ramos allowing 11.67. Tukhugov doing a better job of controlling his opponents and showing good takedown defenses. You know, he's out-controlling his opponents by almost 17%. Very good job. 100% takedown defense, 73% for Ramos. Both of these guys could have success in the wrestling. Both of these guys could have success in the striking. If we look at this over here, the significance, the strength of schedule, we've got a little bit better of a ratio, but a little more experienced competition for Tukhugov. The wins, a little bit better for Ramos here, but a little bit more experienced competition for Tukhugov that he's beating. And the losses, you know what I noticed about this fight, you guys, that I don't really see any advantages anywhere. And I just said on the DraftKings show earlier today on Pub Sports Radio was I think I'm just going with the draw on this one because I don't have a read either way. I don't see either one of these guys having a gigantic advantage in any area except for maybe this, the tail of the tape stuff for Ramos just being younger and longer. But, you know, Ramos going to be coming all the way from Brazil while Tukhugov does his training, I think, a lot of the time in Abu Dhabi. I think that might even be where he spends a lot of time or lives. So, yeah, I'm just leaning Ramos a little bit here, but my call here, what I like to do when I really have no idea who's going to win the fight, and I think it's a really close matchup, I just call draw. So we'll call a draw on this one. Excuse me, hang on. Hey, you have to excuse me. My throat's giving out on me a little bit. I think I'm getting a little bit sick. My allergy to these simp bettors has returned, you guys. And that brings us to Amanda Ribas versus Virna Jandiroba. Yeah, you guys, let's get into the numbers here and then we'll talk about it, all right? We've got Virna 5 years older here, 33 years old compared to 28 for Amanda. Amanda's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Both of these ladies orthodox fighters. Both of these ladies from Brazil. One classically beautiful in Amanda Ribas, the other ruggedly handsome in Virna Jandiroba. It's going to be Virna who's the more experienced fighter here. 19 professional fights to 12 for Ribas. About twice as much time in the pro cage for Virna. Average fight time pretty similar for both. And about 1 more year as a pro for Virna. Both of these ladies have 5 fights at the UFC level. Ribas 4-1, Jandiroba 3-2. Almost identical cage time, almost identical average fight time. And now we got my guys, Nigel Lee and DFS by the numbers showing their apple martinis. I got my Noon Whistle Brewing squishy gummy here that I'm enjoying. But you know who will be drinking the apple teenies? It will be the Amanda Ribas bettors here, the simp bettors, the bettors who think that maybe they'll have a chance with her if I can just tell her the one time I meet her that I bet on you against Virna Jandiroba, even though you lost. Because that's what she's going to do here, you guys. She's going to lose to Virna. And here's why. Here's what I'm seeing in the numbers. So we got that nice little youth advantage here for Ribas. We got a 2-inch reach advantage here for Ribas. So I'm showing a tail of the tape advantage for Ribas. But we got an experience advantage for Virna here. And then if we look at the finish rates, we see an 82% finish rate here for Virna as a pro, 70% for Ribas. Ribas has finished 50% of her UFC wins, while Virna has finished 100% of her wins. And Virna, the more durable lady here, is she has 2 losses, and she's never been finished. And both of her losses were very close fights, while in Amanda Ribas' 2 losses, she's been finished in both of them. She's been knocked out in both of them. She's been knocked out by Marina Rodriguez, no shame in that. But she's also been knocked down and knocked out by one of Colby Covington's best ladies, Miss Pollyanna Viana, not known for her power. So durability edge going to Virna here. Now, the striking, this is going for Amanda. Look at these fantastic striking numbers in the UFC. 4.25 significant strikes landed a minute, only 1.78 absorbed. 44% striking accuracy, 72% striking defense. Excellent. But a big hole in that is that she's not durable. If you do crack that defense, you can knock her down. She's been knocked down once and 81 significant strikes absorbed. 1.23% knockdowns per total significant strikes absorbed. A third of a knockdown allowed per 15 minutes. Virna only lands 2.65 significant strikes a minute at 46% striking accuracy, and she absorbs almost 0.3 more at 2.92, showing a 53% striking defense. Not great. So those striking numbers definitely going Ribas's way. And then we get to the grappling numbers. Now, both of these ladies have some pretty good grappling numbers here. Amanda Ribas has done a much better job of out-controlling her opponents, but she hasn't fought Carla Esparza. So Ribas, 7 of 12 on her takedown attempts, 58.33%, 2.31 takedowns for 15 minutes. And when she gets the fight down there, she's active trying to finish with submissions at 1.65 submission attempts for 15 minutes. And she's getting 40% control time while only yielding 7% control time. And she's also stopping takedowns at an 85% clip, 0.33 takedowns allowed per 15 minutes. She has not had a submission attempt attempted against her. Jandiroba also getting over 50% of her takedown attempts, attempting 3 per fight, getting 8 of them, 53.33% striking or takedown accuracy, 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, and we got 1.88 submission attempts for 15 minutes. So she's out-controlling her opponents by a very slim 3% clip, but, you know, it seems to be a levels thing with Virna. You know, she kind of traded control time with Mackenzie Dern and also with Esparza, but, you know, in the fights against Mallory Martin, Felice Herrig, and Kaneko Murata, you know, we saw her really control those inferior opponents in every aspect of the fight. Those were dominant wins. If we look at the strength of schedule here, we see that Virna Jandiroba 2.1 ratio, while it's only 1.35 for Ribas. 8 total fights, 6.2 for Jandiroba. Wins for Jandiroba 2 ratio to 1.2 for Ribas. 8.75 total fights for Ribas, so she's beating the more experienced competition, while Jandiroba's beating the competition with the better win-loss ratio. And both these ladies are losing to good fighters. Ribas, they only lost to Marina Rodriguez, a 4 ratio and 5 total fights. Jandiroba, the losses to Mackenzie Dern and Carla Esparza, 9.5 total fights, 2.17 ratio overall. So I'm giving a strength of schedule advantage to Jandiroba. I'm actually giving the grappling advantage to Jandiroba, and it's more of an on-paper one because she's a multi-time world champion at the highest level, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Virna's absolute stud, 14-0 coming into the UFC, and then coming into the UFC, her debut was against Carla Esparza. So that's how highly they think of her. That's where she started. She's had 5 great fights. All of them have been close when she loses. All of them have not been close when she wins. Ribas, dominant in her own right. Wins, though, over Paige Van Zandt, Randa Marcos, post-pregnancy Mackenzie Dern, and then Emily Quitmeyer. So, yeah, the pick, you guys, is Virna Jandiroba. I said it on I said it on the DraftKings show that all the simp bettors were going to be crying in their apple teenies, because they don't drink beer because they're simps. They don't drink scotch or whiskey because they're simps. They're sipping on some kind of a girl drink, maybe like a squashed alley cat or a chocolate choo-choo or probably an apple teeny, while the rest of us men here, we drink our beer and we watch fights and we bet on the fighter that we think is going to win instead of the one that has the prettiest ass. So let me tell you something, you guys. It's Virna Jandiroba all day. Your Uncle Weezy's calling it, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is too. I do have a max bet on her at plus 128, and I love the sub prop at plus 1,200. That's an 8% implied probability, you guys. Can't do much better than that for a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion in Virna Jandiroba, a woman who pulled guard against Mackenzie Dern, completely unafraid to go to the ground with her. A woman who in her last fight against Kaneko Murata not only broke Kaneko's arm in the first round, but broke her orbital as well. I think Virna's on a roll. I think she needs to go now because she's 33. Her title run needs to start now. And in order for that title run to happen, she's going to need to get a marquee name like Amanda Ribas on her resume. And the striking steps that she took forward in the last fight against Murata, in addition to the dominant grappling game that she has, I see her winning here. It could potentially be inside the distance, but I'm not betting it inside the distance. I would just hit that sub prop. That's probably the best way to try to get an inside the distance bet on Jandiroba at plus 1,200. You don't have to bet much on it in order to get a big win there. So the pick is Virna Jandiroba. I'm going to pick her inside the distance to win by submission, you guys. All right. I can get off my soapbox now and move on to some ridiculously hard names to pronounce here as we got Magomed Ankalaev and Volkan Ozdemir. So Ankalaev, 3 years younger, 1 inch taller, no reach advantage. Both these guys orthodox fighters. Ankalaev fighting out of Akhmat. Volkan Fight Move Academy. It's going to be Volkov with the experience advantage here. Volkan, 22 fights to 16, 17-5 record for Volkan, 15-1 record for Ankalaev. And if Ankalaev hadn't tapped in the last second of that Craig fight, he'd be 16-0, man. Wow. And, slight cage time advantage for Ankalaev here. About 4 more minutes average fight time for Ankalaev. Is Volkan's nickname is No Time, and he fights like he's got no time. He fights like he's double parked. He gets in, he gets out, and he runs out of the cage when he's done. And so Ozdemir with the experience advantage here. He's been a pro about 3 years longer, a little more cage time, 6 more fights, and 2 more fights at the UFC level, 20 more minutes at the UFC level. But it's really Ankalaev who's killing it with a 6-1 record in comparison to 5-4 record for Volkan. But it is Volkan who's fighting the better level of competition here. Now, we've got a 60% finish rate overall as a pro for Ankalaev, 67% in the UFC. We've got a 77% finish rate for Ozdemir as a pro, 60% in the UFC. And in these guys' losses, we've got, 5 losses, 4 of them coming inside the distance for Ozdemir, 1 loss, 1 of them coming inside the distance for Ankalaev. I think that's a great spot for a violence bet here as we have 6 combined losses, 5 of them coming inside the distance. And I'm still waiting for Ankalaev to get tested because I don't know what's going to happen if somebody actually gets to this guy. Because the only time I've seen him in any trouble was with 2 seconds left in a fight that he had won from pillar to post. And the second that Paul Craig locked up that triangle, he showed no fight awareness. He showed it was just really bad IQ to tap to a triangle choke with no time left in the fight. I mean, it was unbelievable. You should have seen the looks on his cornermen's faces after he did that. They look like they wanted to fucking jump in the cage and kill him. I'm not sure if how Ankalaev is going to respond if he's faced with any kind of adversity here. That still looms large for me here. And it makes me not want to lay the juice on him because Volkan has got a lot of power, you guys. And he's just dangerous. So let's look at the numbers. Ankalaev putting up really good numbers. 3.41 landed a minute, only 1.78 absorbed. 54% striking accuracy, great power numbers, landing a knockdown on 2.3% of the significant strikes that he's landed. I think that comes out to 5 knockdowns and 217 significant strikes landed, 1.18 knockdowns per 15 minutes, while Volkan lands 5.03 and absorbs 4.24. So definitely more volume out of Volkan. Not as accurate, though, and not as powerful, at least on paper, while the striking defense really much better level for Ankalaev here at 65% compared to 55% for Volkan. And then if we look at the grappling numbers here, we're going to see that Volkan 2 of 10 on his takedown attempts. He's probably not going to try to get this fight to the ground. Ankalaev, not a very willing wrestler in his own right at only 15 takedown attempts in 7 fights. He is out-controlling his opponents 38% to 7%, though, and showing 85% takedown defense in his own right. So Ankalaev very efficient in the grappling exchanges and showing the ability to win minutes there, while Volkan has won minutes with his grappling, has gotten a couple of takedowns, but it's not really his game. But what Volkan does do really well is he has over 80% takedown defense in his own right, and he's able to keep the fight standing, which is where he wants it. It seems to be where he's most comfortable, unless his opponent is just absolutely deficient on the ground. So, I don't know if Ankalaev is going to be trying to get this fight to the ground or not, but he may not have success getting it to the ground. Volkan showing that really good takedown defense. Volkan being controlled less than 10% of his UFC career. So I do see this fight taking place mostly standing, and I like what I see technically out of Ankalaev. He's really smooth. He's great defensively, and he has shown great power. But the thing that we do have to talk about here is the strength of schedule. Look at Volkan Ozdemir. 1.81 ratio compared to 1.38 and 4 more total fights. And then you look at the wins, better ratio, almost 6 more total fights. Losses, better ratio, same amount of total fights. So Ozdemir definitely fighting the better brand of competition. So we could say with some confidence that this is a step up for Magomed. We don't know how he's going to handle it. We don't know how he's going to handle any adversity should he finally face some. But then again, we could also say that the fact that he really hasn't faced any adversity, that could be a trend, that could continue. Magomed could cruise here. I'm going to tread lightly. If I'm making a bet on this fight, it's a violence bet. Like we say, we've got 6 combined losses, 5 of them inside the distance. That's an 83% implied probability. Both of these guys showing a ton of power. I think we could see one of these guys get knocked out. I think this fight could definitely end by knockout, and it's going to be a violent end inside the distance. But I'm going to lean Ankalaev here, but I would not bet on him at this current line. And the current line is like minus 350 here, minus 340, but the best you can get him is minus 295. That's like a 75% implied probability. I don't want to lay that kind of juice when somebody's taking as big of a step up in competition as Ankalaev is taking here. But I still think Ankalaev can win minutes on the ground and on the feet here and do enough to win this fight should it go to the scorecards. But I do plan on betting that this fight won't go to the scorecards, depending on what the line is. Fight doesn't go to decision. Yeah, that's pretty good right there, like minus 165. That's bettable for me. Maybe 1.65 units to win 1. But yeah, guys, the pick is Ankalaev. The pick is fight doesn't go to decision. And let's move on to the next one. As we're cruising through here, we're an hour and 15 minutes in, and we've only got 5 fights left to go. Li Jingliang against Khamzat Chimaev. We got Chimaev 6 years younger, 2 inches taller, and a 4-inch reach advantage. So he's got a huge tail of the tape advantage here, while Lee has got a huge experience advantage, having 15 more fights than Khamzat, 225 more minutes of cage time, and 11 more years as a pro, and 11 more UFC fights, and about 140 more minutes in the UFC cage. 10-4 in the UFC is Lee. 3-0 in the UFC is Khamzat. Khamzat has got a 100% finish rate as a pro, while Lee has a 72% finish rate as a pro. Lee, tough as nails, only being finished in one of his 6 losses, while Khamzat Chimaev has never been finished because he's never lost. This will be fun, you guys. Let's look at these striking numbers because this is going to be real fun. Let's start with Lee. 4.52 significant strikes landed per minute, only 3.65 absorbed for a positive significant strike differential of about 0.9, 42.5% striking accuracy. Lee showing good power at 1.31% knockdown per total significant strikes landed, and showing almost a 60% striking defense. He's been knocked down on almost 1% of the significant strikes that he's absorbed, been knocked down 5 times in 557 significant strikes, 0.49 times per 15 minutes. While if we look at Khamzat here, in 3 UFC fights, Khamzat has landed 87 significant strikes and only absorbed 1. Let me repeat that. Khamzat, in 3 UFC fights, has landed 87 significant strikes and absorbed 1 significant strike. He is landing 9.03 significant strikes per minute and absorbing 0.1 significant strikes a minute. 72.5% striking accuracy, 66.67% striking defense. He has landed a knockdown on 1.15% of the significant strikes that he's landed for 1.56 knockdowns per 15 minutes. He's gotten 3 of his 4 takedowns. He's got 92.56% control time for and allowed not 1 second of control time against. Khamzat Chimaev is absolutely dismantled all 3 of the men put in front of him. And he's done it in such impressive fashion that it's really hard to picture a mortal human being giving this guy even a little bit of resistance. Now, he's went through some shit, you guys. He had COVID and tried to keep training while he had COVID, kept getting worse, didn't take care of himself, made a lot of really dumb decisions in terms of continuing to try to train through this illness that he had. He had to stay away from the game for a while. I think that's pretty much killed him mentally. I don't think this guy likes to not be fighting. He hasn't fought since 2020. It's been over a year since we've seen this guy, you guys. But Khamzat Chimaev is special. He's a once in a lifetime fighter, it seems like. I mean, these kind of numbers that he's putting up are absolutely incredible. The dominance on the ground is incredible. The wrestling, the control time, the ground and pound. And then not only that, like when he is standing, you can see that even in his pre-UFC experience, that this guy has absolutely got good stand-up. He knocked down Gerald Meerschaert with 1 punch. He knocked out a dude in Brave with an uppercut that I think sent the dude's Ikram Ali scare off. That poor dude's head is like in the 4th row after he got knocked with an uppercut. Dude, Khamzat Chimaev is an absolute killer. I am picking him to win inside the distance. I think he's going to murder Lee. If Khamzat gets exposed, it could be this fight. You know, Lee's a veteran. Lee has only been finished in 1 of his 6 losses. Lee has fought the much better brand of competition. He's much more experienced. He's on paper, he's the better striker. But, Khamzat is just, the thing is sometimes when somebody's that good of a wrestler, you can't even plant your feet and throw a punch for fear of being taken down. So I do see Khamzat Chimaev winning this fight, 1st or 2nd round. Just an absolute destruction on the ground of ground and pound here. Li Jingliang's takedown defense, 59.46%, being taken down 15 times in 14 fights, being controlled for 17% of his UFC career. The path is there for Khamzat. He's going to win this fight. He's going to win it inside the distance. I already have a bet on this fight. It is the fight doesn't go to decision. I believe I got it at -260 or -240. or maybe minus 220, but I put 2.2 units on it to win one. Looking for this fight to finish inside the distance. And the reason I love that bet is if we do see Khamzat get extended and we find out that he doesn't have 3-round cardio, that pushing that kind of a pace and that kind of a wrestling heavy style, will have him fading in the 3rd round. Lee is the type of guy who's tough enough to, maybe even get through the fire and then finish Khamzat in the 3rd. So this is without having to jump up and take that super juiced line on Khamzat Chimaev here at like minus 600. I am just going to bet the fight doesn't go to decision here and enjoy watching the return of a really, really dominant fighter in Khamzat Chimaev here. We're getting treated to a hell of a card. I can't wait to see these guys and to see Khamzat get this test in Li Jingliang that he deserves after this long layoff. I can't wait for this fight. This is a great prospect against a really tough, tested veteran here. Pick is Khamzat Chimaev inside the distance. I'm going to call it by ground and pound knockout. Next fight, you guys, we got Alexander Volkov against Marcin Tybura. Okay, so we've got Volkov being 4 inches taller, 3 inches younger, 3 years younger, and 2-inch reach advantage here for Volkov. Volkov also has the experience advantage, having 14 more professional fights, about 100 more minutes of cage time, almost 3 more years as a pro. But it's Tybura, actually, who has fought a higher percentage of his career at the UFC level. 14 of his 28 fights have been at the UFC level, while for Volkov, it's only 10 out of 42. But both these guys have a similar amount of UFC cage time, and the average fight time, 12 minutes for Tybura, 15.33 minutes for Volkov. Looking at the finishing stats here, we see Volkov mostly finishing by knockout, 73% finish rate overall, 64% by knockout, 9% by sub, and he's finished 4 of his 7 UFC wins inside the distance by knockout, has Volkov. Tybura, a 68% finish rate overall, 41% by knockout, 27% by sub, and he has finished 4 of his 9 UFC wins inside the distance. Just like Volkov, they're all by knockout. And then if we look at the losses, 9 professional losses for Volkov, 4 of them coming inside the distance, 2 by sub, 2 by knockout, while Tybura has been knocked out in 4 of his 6 professional losses and 3 of his 5 UFC losses. So there's definitely a path for knockout here for Volkov, and there could be a path for submission or knockout by Tybura. If we look at the striking stats, we see that Volkov is landing a very impressive 5.23 significant strikes a minute, only absorbing 3.12. He's got a 56.84% striking accuracy. He's landing a knockdown on 0.37% of the significant strikes that he lands and getting 0.29 knockdowns for 15 minutes. While we got Tybura here, 50% striking accuracy, 1 knockdown and 619 significant strikes landed, not much in the way of knockdowns for 15 minutes. 55% striking defense. He's been knocked down on 0.71% of the significant strikes that he's landed, 0.35 knockdowns allowed per 15 minutes. So Volkov definitely going to have the striking advantage here, you guys. He's the much longer guy. He's got the 2-inch reach advantage, 4-inch height advantage, and he just hits harder. He's just the better boxer. While Tybura is a guy that looks for takedowns, looks to get the fight to the ground, win the control time positions, and he doesn't really even fish for subs. He just tries to knock you out on the ground, and he's been very good at doing that. So we've got Volkov, 7 of 10 on his takedown attempts, 70% accuracy, 0.68 takedowns for 15 minutes, and 6.31% control time for. While he's been taken down 19 times on 60 attempts, 68.33% striking or takedown defense. He's being taken down 1.86 times for 15 minutes, and he's being out-controlled almost at a 4-to-1 ratio. But I would imagine those numbers would be a lot closer if that Curtis Blades fight had never happened. Tybura, 42 takedown attempts in 14 fights. So that is exactly 3 takedown attempts per fight. 45% takedown accuracy is good. 1.67 takedowns for 15 minutes is good. And he's out-controlling his opponents 31% to 14%. And he's showing 82% takedown defense in his own right is Tybura. So I think that Teixeira definitely has the grappling advantage here. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He likes to get the fight to the ground. He's got excellent ground and pound, and he's got a really good submission game as well. So this is what I'm looking at as a standard striker versus grappler matchup. But I am definitely leaning Volkov here for the following reasons. Let's look at the advanced stats here and kind of take a look at how active the takedown game of Marcin Teixeira has been in a very active sample size here. So we got all these fights, Walt Harris, Greg Hardy, Rothwell, Grishin, it goes on, right? And you want to see this guy shooting takedowns, right? Well, here's one takedown, 3 takedowns, 2 takedowns, 0-0, 5 out of 7 here in this fight against Stefan Struve. 1 out of 2, 1 out of 2, 2 out of 3, 1 out of 2, 0 out of 0, 1. So even in all these fights, how many of them are there? 14 fights. He's only gotten 19 takedowns. Now, in order for him to beat Volkov, he needs a takedown in every round. Probably needs at least 2. And he needs 1 in each of the 3 rounds probably. But if he gets 1 in the first, 1 in the second, and accumulates about 3 minutes of control time, he could probably do it. But the control time he's gonna need to out-control guys that are good wrestlers and stuff like that. See, we don't see 138 seconds of control time, 87, 188. Here we got 500. Here we got 500. These 2 wins against Spivak and Grishin. So he's going to have to work that same kind of game plan against Volkov that he did against Spivak and Grishin. But Grishin, the problem is that he's a 205er, and Spivak is a small heavyweight as well. His opponent is not. Volkov is a very, very large man. And I don't see the commitment to the wrestling that I'd like to see in order for him to win this fight more times than not. I think Volkov wins this fight. Volkov already has excellent takedown defense. And let's just talk about that for a second here. So we see that Volkov was taken down 14 out of 25 times here by our guy Blades, right? So if you take that out of the numbers here, he has been taken down 5 times in 35 attempts outside of the Blades fight. So that means that his takedown defense is about, 85% outside of the Blades fight. Blades is the best wrestler in the heavyweight division right now. So Teixeira, not an active wrestler, a fairly high percentage wrestler, but he's not the kind of guy who spams takedowns, shoots 3 takedowns every single round. He shoots 3 takedowns per fight. So he's going to need to get at least a couple of them and then need to get a good amount of control time. And the thing is, like, Volkov is just not giving up a lot of control time. Other than the 1192 he gave up in control time to Blades here, the most that we've seen him controlled is 399 against another Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master in Fabricio Verdum. And then guys like wrestlers like Nelson and Johnson were able to take him down, but he still beat those guys. So I do see Volkov winning this fight. I see him stopping enough takedowns and landing enough on the feet to either cruise to a decision or to get a 3rd round knockout here against Marcin Teixeira. I'm a big fan of Teixeira. He's a great fighter. But this is a tough matchup for him, and I don't see him having enough success with his ground game and top control to win enough minutes to have any chance of winning this fight. The pick is Volkov with confidence there, you guys. The pick here is going to be Makhachev with confidence. I just don't see anybody beating Islam Makhachev at this point. These video game numbers that he puts up, he allows in 10 fights, he's only absorbed 80 significant strikes. He absorbs 8 strikes per fight, you guys. Less than 1 significant strike a minute, over 70% striking defense for this guy. He gets takedowns at a 65% clip. He's gotten 23 takedowns in only 10 fights, 3.31 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents 51% to 9%. So he's just so dominant with his grappling game. The striking will be all Hooker, but I really don't think that there's gonna be a lot of time spent there. Hooker does have 80% takedown defense. If you're on the Hooker side, the only way that you're thinking you win this fight is if he keeps moving, and it is a big cage, so that does help. There's less areas for him to get kind of cornered here. It's a big cage. He can keep his feet moving. He can keep circling and avoid the takedown attempts of Islam Makhachev, but Islam strings him together so well. If he doesn't get the first one, he'll get the second or the third. And then once he gets you down, you pretty much stay there. Not a lot of people getting back up after this dude takes you down. And he's just dominant there. It's hard to see anybody beating him. The line is reflective of this. Nobody really sees Hooker winning this fight. He's fighting. It's a very quick turnaround after the Nasrat Haqparast fight, which was about a month ago, I think. So the pick is going to be Islam Makhachev. I think he probably subs him in the second or third round. He's just going to drown him. And I just don't want to get too much into this fight. I don't want to get too much into the stats of this fight because I just don't see a path for Hooker here, even in the big cage. Even if he stops 8 or 9 takedowns, I think the ones that Islam does get, he'll be dominant with. Yeah, don't want to overthink this one, you guys. Makhachev inside the distance by submission. All right. Co-main event time, you guys. Peter Yan, Corey Sandhagen. What a fight for the interim 135-pound championship until Aljo gets his neck figured out, because that neck injury, the doctors have not been clearing Aljo to get back in the cage. So we'll see if Peter can get a win over Corey Sandhagen here and get at least a belt put around his waist, which he does deserve at this point. It's a shame what happened in that last fight. It's a shame that knee landed where it did and the DQ happened. But we're on to the next, you guys. Corey Sandhagen, big tail of the tape advantage here. 4 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage. Both these guys fighting out of both stances. Both these guys, 17 professional fights. Yan just more cage time because he has a longer average fight time. The length of the pro career, almost identical. The amount of UFC fights and UFC experience, almost identical. The finish numbers, close. 64% for Sandhagen, 54% for Yan. Sandhagen's been finished once in one of his 3 losses, while Yan has been finished never. The striking numbers, got a decent sample size here. We got 5.99 landed per minute for Peter Yan and only 3.55 absorbed. 52% striking accuracy. He's landing a knockdown on 1.34% of the significant strikes that he's landing and 1.2 knockdowns per 15 minutes. While he's got a 62.5% striking defense, he's been knocked down once in 398 significant strikes absorbed, 0.13 times per 15 minutes. While Sandhagen is a volume monster here at 13.29 significant strikes thrown per minute, 6.32 landed, only 4.05 absorbed, 47% striking accuracy, 0.78% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, and 0.74 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Corey Sandhagen has never been knocked down and is just below 60% striking defense. Sandhagen, not much of a wrestler, 9 takedown attempts in only 9 fights, but he's gotten 4 of them for 44% takedown accuracy, gotten about 13% control time for, yielding 19% control time against, and showing sub 70% takedown defense here at 65.63%. While we see Peter Yan getting 2/3 of his takedown attempts, a very efficient wrestler, getting 2.14 per 15 minutes and getting just under 15% control time while only yielding 7% control time and showing a fantastic 90.48% takedown defense. So if we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, we see very similar numbers. Sandhagen, 2.34 ratio, 1.9 for Yan. 13 total fights for Sandhagen, 11.25 for Yan here. An average record of a Yan opponent, 7.38 wins, 3.88 losses. While for Sandhagen, it's 9.11 wins and 3.89 losses. The wins a little bit better for Sandhagen here at a 2.11 ratio and a little more experienced opponents. And the losses, pretty even here. Just a little bit better ratio for Jan. Same amount of total fights almost, just a little bit less for Jan here. So strength of schedule, very even. I would say Sandhagen just a little bit better on the strength of schedule. Sandhagen definitely has got a tail of the tape advantage here. The finish numbers are close. I see Peter Yan being the better wrestler and grappler here, and the striking is close, you guys. I wonder what you guys in the chat are thinking here for this fight. I've got a bet on Yan. I got him at minus 220. I've got 4.4 units on it to win 2. I don't really see anybody beating Peter Yan right now. He just seems like he's got an aura about him, like that nobody's going to beat this guy. He's very difficult to hurt. His counter striking is fantastic. He's incredibly accurate, and he can wrestle whenever he wants to. He gets really nice trips, Muay Thai trips there when fighters try to close range on him. You know, it's a great fight because Corey Sandhagen is so fun to watch. He's got excellent conditioning. He's got great range, a ton of power, really good jump knees, a lot of unorthodox striking techniques that have a lot of power and that you don't necessarily see coming. A really compelling matchup because Jan doesn't go to the wrestling as much as you think he does, you know, only 3 takedown attempts per fight. But he's so efficient with them that it looks like he will be the one winning minutes in the grappling here. And I think that the striking is going to be very close. But I just think if somebody gets knocked down, it's going to be Corey. Peter just seems to be so accurate with those hands, so deadly, so smooth. Corey a little more unorthodox. But yeah, I like Peter Yan here, you guys. But I even think that this line is a little bit wide, even though I bet it. I have a little bit of buyer's remorse here. There's definitely a path for Corey Sandhagen. You cannot count this guy out. I am really looking forward to this fight here, you guys. But the pick is going to be Peter Yan by decision. And that gets us to the main event, you guys. Now, I did a main event breakdown on DFS by the Numbers channel for this fight. We went about 40 minutes. So there's a lot of good information in there. So I'll try to go over this as fast as I can so I can get you a parlay, so I can get you the ass shaving of the week, and so that you guys can enjoy the rest of your night. But we've got Blachowicz, 3 years younger than Glover Teixeira. Identical height and a 2-inch reach advantage. So small tail of the tape advantage here for Blachowicz. Experience advantage, slight for Glover. Finish stats. 61% for Blachowicz and 84% for Glover. 38% finish rate against for Blachowicz, 43% finish rate against for Glover. 5-round fight. I do see this fight finishing inside the distance, you guys. We got Blachowicz landing 3.59 significant strikes a minute, absorbing 2.79, about 50% accuracy, landing a knockdown on 0.82% of the significant strikes that he lands, 0.44 knockdowns for 15 minutes. And we've got a 54% striking defense for Yan, not getting knocked down barely at all, only once in 565 absorbed. While Glover Teixeira, very similar numbers here, 3.58 landed, 3.88 absorbed, 49% accuracy, 0.36 knockdowns for 15 minutes. And he's also getting knocked down 0.36 times for 15 minutes. And he's got about a 54% striking defense. So on paper, definitely better for Blachowicz, better power numbers, better chin holding up numbers for Blachowicz. Volume, very similar for both. But I'm giving Blachowicz the striking advantage here. And then it's going to be Glover Teixeira with the wrestling advantage, as he's attempted 67 takedowns in 20 fights, gotten 27 of them, 40% takedown percentage, 1.95 times for 15 minutes. And he's getting 32% control time while only yielding 14% control time. While Blachowicz, not as willing of a wrestler, but more efficient of a wrestler. 30 takedown attempts, he's gotten more than half of them, 53.33%. 15.38% control time for, 25.93% control time against. So there is a path to win minutes on the ground, out controlling Jan Blachowicz. He's shown a 66% takedown defense. He's getting taken down less than one time per 15 minutes, while Teixeira is getting taken down almost twice per 15 minutes. Neither one of these guys showing particularly great takedown defense, but I think it will be Glover shooting for the takedowns, as he's been the more active wrestler over both of their careers, attempting about 3.5 takedowns per fight, while Blachowicz attempts about 2 per fight. If we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, we see Glover Teixeira with the better ratio here and more total fights. So a little bit of an advantage there overall, and a little bit of an advantage here because he's fighting a more experienced competition with almost the same ratio, and a little bit of an advantage here, much better ratio, same amount of total fights. I'm giving Glover Teixeira the strength of schedule advantage, the grappling advantage, and I'm giving Blachowicz the striking advantage, the power advantage, and the tail of the tape advantage. The experience is very close. I got to go with Blachowicz here, and I just want to highlight one stat that Brady and I talked about on the main event breakdown that we did, and this is in relation to Jan Blachowicz's takedown defense over his career. So if we look at these numbers here, this is the takedowns that he's allowed. These are the takedowns that his opponents have shot on him. So if we take these first 5 fights of his career, you guys, when Blachowicz, or we'll take the first 6. First 6 fights of his career, if we add up the takedowns and takedowns attempted, we get 7, 11 out of 15, 16, 22. So he showed 50% takedown defense, Jan Blachowicz, over his first 6 fights. 11 of 22, his opponents were taking him down. Then after that, the next 10 fights, 2, 4, 5, 6, 16, he successfully defended 14 of 16 takedown attempts against. So the takedown defense in the first 6 fights was 50%. The takedown defense in the next 10 fights is about 85%. So if Jan Blachowicz continues to stop these takedown attempts, can keep the fight on the feet where he's going to be the most comfortable, he's going to have a lot of success here, and I see him eventually knocking down Teixeira and then knocking him out. But if Teixeira is efficient with his wrestling, goes to it early and often, and finds success with it, we could definitely see him winning a ton of minutes and doing a lot of damage on the ground as well. I don't see this fight going to decision, you guys. Both of these guys, Teixeira, it's now or never. If he doesn't win this fight, he's probably retiring. He's almost 43 years old. And then you got Blachowicz. He wants to hold on to this belt, but he's 38 years old in his own right. So, the time for him to be champion is right now. He needs to keep winning. Both of these guys need to do it now. I think that they're both going to have a sense of urgency. I like this fight to finish inside the distance, but the pick, you guys, is going to be Jan Blachowicz by knockout. But I'm not betting it because I think the line is too wide. I think Glover is too live here, and I think a lot of people sleep on Glover's wrestling and his ground game, and I know that Blachowicz is going to be tested with that, but I still think he's going to pass that test, and it's going to be and still Glover Teixeira. 15 fights, you guys, an hour and 43 minutes in. Let's get right down to business. Greasy 4-leg parlay. And you guys, there are violent spots I like here. So let's start to find some of these violent spots that we can start parlaying with the money lines that we like. First leg is going to be, oh boy, the Zaleski Saint-Denis fight doesn't go to decision, isn't even out yet. So, first leg of the parlay, Duraev, Kopylov, fight doesn't go to decision. Second leg of the parlay, Jingliang, Chimaev, fight doesn't go to decision. Third leg, Blachowicz, Teixeira, fight doesn't go to decision. Fourth leg is going to be Alexander Thick Volkov money line. Volkov money line, 3 violence bets, you guys. Jingliang Kimaev violence. The Zaleski that one isn't even out. The Duraev Kopylov violence, and then the main event violence, and then the money line on Alexander Volkov. You guys, that's our greasy 4-leg parlay of the week, which leaves us with one order of business to take care of. And you know what that is. It's Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Came through last week in absolute flying colors. I told you Jai, the Black Country Banger, Herbert, was going to knock out Kamaworthy in the first round. And what happened? My boy Jai, the Black Country Banger, Herbert, knocked out Kamaworthy in the first round. We need a violent finish here in order for this to be the ass shaving of the week. We need this to be a one-sided fight. We need this to be dominance. It's going to be Albert Duraev this week, you guys. Albert Duraev by submission over the very one-dimensional, very low-output Roman Kopylov. I love that this fight isn't going to go to decision, but I love even more that Albert Duraev is going to be the one to get it done inside the distance. You guys, thank you for spending your Tuesday night with me. I'm sorry I didn't get to interact with the chat as much as I usually do today, but my voice is giving out. There were 15 fights to go over, so I just didn't get to talk to you guys as much as I would like to. But I would like to thank each and every one of you for spending your Tuesday night with me, your Uncle Weezy, right here on Just the Tip. We got a great 4-leg parlay for you guys. We got Albert Duraev in the ass shaving of the week over Roman Kopylov this week. And we got you guys out there who are going to be stacking a bunch of cash tickets like flapjacks. God bless each and every one of you guys. I will see you soon. I'm going to try to come back tomorrow with another Balls Deep breakdown. If you have any ideas of what fights you want me to break down for another Balls Deep breakdown this week for UFC 267, hit me up on Twitter. If you haven't already, big up this video, thumb it up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. You guys are killing it with the thumbs up and the subscriptions, making me feel great. I appreciate each and every one of you for spending your Tuesday night with me. I will be back tomorrow, you guys. Have a great night. Thank you. And I'm going to end the broadcast right here.